Hey there folks, and welcome to another episode of A Healthy Dose of Fran. Today I'm doing a new film review for you all on the most recent release to do with the DC Universe. This film was directed by James Wan, who directed Furious 7 and all of the Saw films. And it stars Jason Momoa from Game of Thrones, which I never actually watched, Amber Heard from Magic Mike XXL, which I've watched, strangely enough, quite a lot. And if you can't already tell what this film is going to be, well, it's the lamest superhero in existence ever that somehow ended up being cool. That's right, folks. It's Aquaman. Coming into this film, I didn't have particularly high expectations because, no offense to DC, it's because it's DC. And they've just basically not had the best luck with films, especially in recent years. So we had like The Dark Knight and stuff like that. That was some of the best DC film creation ever. And then it just ruined itself. It just imploded in on itself. Probably because Marvel just really raised the stakes. But, you know, it doesn't matter. Moving on from this. But didn't have high expectations going in. So when I started to watch this film, well, okay, before I go into it, I'm just going to let you guys know that there will be a few spoilers in relation to plot and character and stuff like that. So if you don't want to hear any spoilers, I'll put like a time here of where you can go to where I can give an overall view and the rating for this film. So, you know, go here because the spoilers will be starting now. Kind of. So this film, so the main thing that I'm just going to go with, this film was great. It wasn't like Wonder Woman great, I'd say, but it's pretty damn fantastic. It's better than Justice League and Batman vs Superman, which, you know, isn't exactly hard because those were a pile of rubbish. But it was a really, really good film. And from it, I can see that DC are kind of taking a different direction with their films, or at least hopefully, especially with the trailer for Shazam, it looks like they're kind of going more down a less serious route, or at least not as serious as it'd come across as. Like obviously in Justice League and Batman vs Superman, they're stupidly serious, but they've tried to put in a bit of comedy, which kind of comes off really awkward and clunky because everything else is so dark. Whereas with like Wonder Woman, we had a good balance between comedy and drama and stuff like that, which is exactly what Aquaman did as well. There was a good balance between comedic moments and dramatic moments. It was a really good balance between them, which I think kind of helped me be more interested in the film and kind of really get caught up in it, considering it's about 2 hours long, which, you know, is pretty much how long all films are these days. And I'm just like, why do they have to take 2 hours of my life? Like, I love films, but come on, you don't need to be that long. And that is kind of some of the case with Aquaman itself. There are quite a few bits that didn't need to be in it, and one of them is the character Mamba, I think is what he ends up calling himself. And so basically we meet him at near the start of the film, so we get the love story about Aquaman, or Arthur Curry's parents. So his mother is obviously an Atlantean, played by Nicole Kidman, who her character is called Atlanta. And then we've got Arthur's father, whose name I don't actually remember, who is an earth dweller, a surface dweller. Is that what they called them? Yeah, surface dweller. But they fall in love. They have Arthur, who is obviously half Atlantean, half human. So there's a lot of kind of racism related to it because the Atlanteans hate surface dwellers, but then the surface dwellers obviously don't know about Atlantis and all that. So it's very interesting sort of stuff, and kind of very modern day sort of topic where there's a lot of racism, and they kind of talk about it in the film because he's considered a half-breed and things like that. But anyway, moving on from that. So we meet Mamba. So I think he ends up calling himself Black Mamba actually in the end. I didn't bring my notebook with me, so I haven't noted down all the character names, so, you know, if I'm wrong, oh well. So this is the thing that I always thought was a little bit, at least afterwards, didn't think he was a very important character, and it kind of was one of the reasons why the story got so dragged out, I think. So we're introduced to him as like a modern day pirate, but he is, as it turns out, in cahoots with Orm, who is currently the king of Atlantis, and is Arthur's half-brother, being full Atlantean. And they are in cahoots to try and get the Atlantean people to turn against the surface and, you know, like kill everyone on the surface and start a war. But like, kind of like other than that, he didn't really serve any purpose. And I think even with that, he didn't need to be involved. There were other ways to kind of convince the Atlanteans to attack the surface. So having his character in that storyline, I feel like it didn't really give anything to the story itself. It kind of just ended up just dragging it out a lot more. And there are kind of lots of things to this. So this is with the plot in general. So there are kind of like 3 different plot lines that are going along with it. They're not all bad. The plots themselves are really quite interesting, but they are pretty much the cliche basic plot of one of them is where Arthur and Mira, who's Amber Heard, who have to go and find this trident so he can be the true king. And it's very much a basic search and find plot. They have to find all these clues to go and find other clues to be able to find where this trident is. And of course it's very convenient that they found this note of how to find this trident the moment he comes to Atlantis, and you know, those sort of things where it's a little bit too convenient. So, you know, not the best storytelling in the world, but that's pretty much all films these days. Nothing is really very different. Everything just kind of has this basic plot sort of development. Most superhero films in general have that. There is always a search and find. Like Infinity War, that was literally a search and find for Thanos. And for the others, it was a stop and attack. So, you know, not exactly well developed, and lots of things were very convenient, like, sorry, I'm getting off topic. But that was a big thing with this film. There was kind of lots of convenience, but the characters are interesting enough that it doesn't really matter that the plot is quite basic. And the action scenes. So lots of people have been complaining about the amount of CGI in this film, which I've just got to say, all superhero films have huge amounts of CGI. Do you really think they had a giant purple man playing Thanos? Like, that is all CGI. The suits were CGI. Like, come on, guys, come on. But the fight scenes, even though some of it was related to CGI and stuff like that, were absolutely amazing. Like, oh my god, you get so caught up in the action sequences. It's just brilliant. And okay, I love the fact that Mira kicks ass like no tomorrow. She is a brilliant warrior. And at first I thought, I was like, oh great, okay. So she kind of gets captured at one point when they're in Sicily, Italy, like finding the last clue of where to go to get the trident. She's kind of caught up with these assassins who have been sent by Orm, and she's kind of there looking kind of damsel in distress, like, and I was like, oh, for God's sake, like, surely she'll be able to stop. And then the moment I thought that, boom, she kicks everyone's butt and basically kind of kills them all. I was so impressed. I was like, yes, thank you for not letting this be another thing where a woman can't kick ass. And also, the film starts with a woman kicking ass, with Nicole Kidman kicking ass. Yes, Aquaman, you did it right. Yes, they not only do they have great backgrounds, they can also kick butt. Just seriously, all the characters in this film are absolutely amazing. There's lots of depth to them. They're really interesting, and even though the plot is a little bit all over the place, all the characters have enough time for growth. Some of the growth is kind of very, very cliche, like Arthur kind of not believing that he's meant to be king, or that he is important enough or worthy enough, but then kind of starts to realise that he is and kind of wants to save people. You know, very sort of cliche, like, I can't do it. Yes, I can. Like, but that's superhero films in general. But the characters themselves have a lot of growth and interest. Like, I was caught up in all of them. Literally, I think that was the only point in the film was when kind of the romance between Arthur and Mira was very... It didn't work for me. Like, I know that they do end up together, but I felt like it was very rushed in the film itself, because there's not enough moments to kind of build that up without it being very two-dimensional. And unfortunately it does come off very two-dimensional in the film. They share a few kind of weird sort of moments, and then suddenly they're kissing in the middle of battle. I'm just going to say that, in the middle of battle, which is literally the stupidest thing ever. But they do it no matter what. There's always a romantic moment in the middle of battle, and it's just stop. Just stop. Don't do that. But they do it all the time. It just continues to happen, and that was kind of like my main negative for the film, was the romance didn't work. Didn't need to be put in at that point. My other negative, I can't tell if it is set before or after Justice League. Like, there were some things that were mentioned that seemed like it was after Justice League, but him and Mira weren't together, and I'm pretty sure they are in Justice League at this point, so clearly it's set after, before, but it's just, it's not very well explained, and it's a little bit confusing. And like, honestly, I blame Justice League for it, because Justice League was a pile of garbage and just didn't need to come out at this point, but you know, getting ahead of myself and kind of rambling on. But I think the thing that really intrigued me the most, so funny enough, the side characters are of Queen Atlanta, Arthur's mother, and his father, who I feel so bad that I don't remember his name. Their story intrigued me the most, and I commented a little bit more about it. I wanted a bit more of the origin story of Aquaman, whereas in this case, Aquaman is already known in the world. Now, people are talking about him on the news, they know he exists, they know what's going on, but, and then we kind of get like a few background pieces of him being trained when he was younger, which that's kind of not explained too much, like why this guy from Atlantis comes to train him. Like, we get like an idea that it's because his mother asked him to, but yeah. So there's lots of things that aren't very well explained in the film, but again, that's most films these days, especially superhero films. Lots of things don't get explained very well. So that was a slight disappointment that it wasn't much of an origin story. He was already a hero at this point and very well known. The film itself, like, okay, yeah, I'm just kind of sum it up, just because I'm going to keep talking about it and kind of not really talk too much about it. So to those of you who will be coming back now, to summarise kind of basically everything that I said, that this film wasn't perfect. No film really is at the moment. Everything is kind of pretty average. But this film is not perfect, but it's enjoyable. Jason Momoa's acting is brilliant. Amber Heard's acting, brilliant. Plot, easy enough to follow. It's interesting, but not too well developed for it to be too complicated, which definitely seemed to be an issue that DC was having in the past. But it's an interesting plot. You can get into it very easily. The action sequences are probably the best part of the film in itself, because they are amazing. The comedy really, really works for this film because of Jason Momoa, in my opinion. His acting ability, and with Amber Heard's acting as well. Both of them really play off the comedy really well with them. They're kind of a good duo to kind of get involved with as an audience. Out on a rating scale, I'd probably give this film a 6 or a 7, which isn't as generous as I thought it was going to be, but because, as I kind of thought about it a little bit more, there are definitely a few issues relating to the plot kind of not being that interesting, which, considering that the writers of the film, I'm going to just look at their names for a sec, Will Beall and David Johnson something, my writing is terrible, they kind of have predominantly written for horror related things and a few action films. I think it's probably based on the fact that they've not really done this thing before. It may not be, but I think it could have tied into it. So the plot isn't that interesting, and it could have been a lot more interesting because it's not the origin film that I thought it was going to be, and that's my fault going in with that expectation of it being a proper origin story. But it was interesting either way. It's a good sort of feel-good film. No real complaints other than the plot could have been better. And also, I want the clarification of whether it's set before or after Justice League. That's all I want. But yeah, 6/7 out of 10. But what do you guys think? Do you think my rating was a little bit too generous, a little bit too stingy? And what was your favourite scene from the film? Leave a comment down below and let me know. It'd be really interesting to hear. But In general, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do appreciate it. In the description box down below is the trailer to Aquaman, as well as the link to my Instagram and my Patreon, where on Patreon you can get early access to any and all of my videos, as well as have a say on what I do in future. Here on YouTube, however, if you're not subscribed, go to the button down below or click the one popping up here on screen. If you want to watch any of my previous film reviews, you can go to the playlist here. And if you want to watch anything in general, another suggestion will be popping up here. But again, guys, thank you so much for coming, and I'll see you guys next time.